one.
Oh, here we are. And I think Aaron has frozen. Welcome to the Crow's Nest. We've been
Oh,
slightly delayed due to technical difficulties, but here's a special edition of the Crow's Nest with Jason and I, and we have some world famous painters on today. And I'm going to go from my bottom counterclockwise around. I'd like to get some introductions. So
and so
on
it
my bottom,
begins.
so it begins. I'd like to kick
Well, that
over
didn't take
to
long.
Derek Schubert. Derek, let's do a little introduction for those folks that don't know you.
Oh dear.
Straight from Michael's bottom.
Straight from my bottom.
Hi, I'm Derek Schubert. I go by DKS on the forums and other places. Studio DKS. I've been painting for 30 plus years, for painting for Reaper for 20 plus years, and sculpting for Reaper as well for 10 or 15.
A
And
skater. The skater.
some people call me a skater, sculptor painter, which is better sounding than pulptor. So
Awesome.
that's me. Thanks.
They
All
just
right,
call
next
me
up.
Skanky.
Go Squirrel.
What's that?
Go Squirrel. Your turn.
Am I a squirrel?
Yeah.
Yep, you're
team
even
squirrel.
farther
Yeah.
to Michael's bottom.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm Michael's other bottom half.
You're my right cheek.
If Derek is the non-smelly bottom, I am the stinky one. I'm Aaron Lovejoy, and I'm just a guy that they invited me on the show. So very glad to be
Awesome.
here. I paint stuff, and
Yeah, and what's the name of your awesome company? Why don't we could throw a pub for that real quick?
Miniature Monthly. So we do painting tutorials on Patreon. Yeah, that's what we do. We also do miniaturemonthly.com has a lot of painting. We have online classes and stuff, which are very cool as well. So,
Nice. We'll
check
talk
it
more
out.
about that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm Jen Greenwald. I have done some painting for Reaper and also for Dark Sword Minis. But I don't have a company or anything else. So I'm really not quite sure why I'm here other than you asked. So
No, I asked you because you're a fantastic, awesome painter. You've got a lot of experience. You've won a lot of awards, and you have a great approach to the hobby. So those were my needs, and you checked all the boxes. So thank you for joining. And then finally,
well,
I
fair
saved
enough.
Rhonda for last because she wanted a little time to warm up. She just remember, Rhonda, Bobby Jackson set the bar extremely low yesterday in the panels, so you just have to not
Okay,
trip on the pebble
so
on the ground, and
being
you're gonna.
barely functional is going to meet the requirements.
Ah,
Okay,
Well,
oh
he,
yeah, totally,
he did
totally.
turn it around in the later rounds.
He
that's
did,
true.
he
You
did.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
8, 9, and 10,
So,
they were definitely his.
all right. So how you doing,
Um,
Rhonda?
I'm pretty good. My name's
Yeah.
Rhonda Bender. I've been painting about 18 years, I guess, almost. I
Hmm.
started with a paint and take at Gen Con and then a Reaper Learn to Paint kit, and now I write the Reaper Learn to Paint kits. So that's I sort of enjoyed that little cycle. Online, I mostly go by Ren the Bard or Bird with a Brush because I'm not very good at picking one alias and sticking to it, I guess. But for all the videos and tutorials and stuff like that, just look for Bird with a Brush, and I'm on Twitch and YouTube and
Nice,
birdwithabrush.com. And
nice, nice.
I
And
think
Jason,
that's
how
it.
you doing this morning?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right.
It was a long
Well, I
day
was gonna
yesterday.
throw. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
2 hours of
it was great. I
panels,
mean, it was a
and
great
then
day yesterday, but it was long.
yeah, then a great D&D session. Frank did a great job with
Yeah.
that. That was a lot of fun. But let's get into the painters panel a little bit. I wanted to we're going to get into the standard questions that we would normally talk in one of these panels, but I wanted to, with this last year, with the pandemic, with everybody being trapped at home, I was wondering, was there something that you learned about or you dug deeper within the hobby due to this pandemic Did you learn something about yourself within the hobby itself during this period of time of being isolated at home, locked out, all that kind of stuff? Derek's nodding. He seems like he has an answer formulating. I'm going to go to you, Derek, first.
I thought that I would be doing a lot more painting and sculpting, like miniaturist paradise. I have to be at home, so I'll just be doing my hobby all the time. It didn't happen. I found myself pouring my creative energies more into gaming, playing live or play by post, mostly Pathfinder games with friends of mine, and just staying connected that way. But it's only in the last few months that the miniature itch has been something I've scratched. And so I've gone back to some figures that have been sitting on my shelf for a while. And I've been enjoying finishing these figures that were half done on my shelf for 10 years. So my Frost Giant Princess and my Sea Elf Bard are now in the finished column. And I'm looking ahead to a few other projects, and then get that sort of mental cobweb out and move on to some new stuff. So
they were screaming, painting. "Help me! Help! Save me! Finish me!" from the shelf of shame, and you just couldn't listen to them anymore, and you had to finish them off.
All right, fine. You get your moment now. I'll finish you.
It's funny. I've had the same experience, and just lately too. There was a few of these old Rackham Confrontation Wolfens that had been sitting, I don't know what, 50%, 60% done for years, and finally I'm just like, I'm just gonna knuckle down and do these, and it was fun. It was liberating, and I actually felt a little bit better. Now the rest of the exiles to the Shelf of Shame are screaming at me louder because I think they'd kind of given up until I paid some attention.
Hey, look, he got one of them. Maybe there's hope for the rest of us.
Exactly. Jen, is there anything that you can think of over this last year that you grew from, or how did this pandemic affect you with your hobby in a positive way, hopefully?
Well, I guess I can think of a couple things. Like Derek, I actually have been doing more gaming over the past 6 months than I have in probably years before then. And so that kind of started early on. I started playing a gladiator mini game with a friend of mine through text, which was kind of interesting. But because we were doing the game, like, well, I guess I better get those minis out and put them together and start painting them. So I did a bunch of that. And then a couple months ago, I started doing more terrain building, which was something completely different that I hadn't done a whole lot of before. And I've been enjoying it, even though I'm terrible at it because I just started. But it's been fun, and it's been a different diversion. Although I don't know what I'm going to do with it because, with very limited to no tabletop gaming going on, I'm going to end up, building buildings and either putting them on a shelf or chucking them out because I don't need to store them anywhere. But that's what I've been doing.
Well, we're back to normal in June. That's what I'm calling it. June-ish, July-ish. We're back to normal. That's what I'm saying. All right, Aaron. Same question to you, but I did notice during this pandemic time. I know, right? During this pandemic time, you've really taken the opportunity and delved into the online presence even more. Was the pandemic help you dive into it more, or was that just part of what you had planned even before the pandemic?
Well, let's start off the year right by going back to the very beginning of the pandemic when we almost died in a car accident. And Liz and I were in a really, really bad car accident, actually traveling to George R. R. Martin's house to drop off a dragon, which never happened because it was destroyed. And then we ended up at Reaper. But basically that was bad. And then, so that started off our year in a hole. We lost a lot of our work stuff. We lost a bunch of commissions that were in the back of the car. It was really bad financially for a professional painter. And Yeah, I got a bunch of professional painters here. You all know how much you make. Nothing. So that's a bad way to start the year.
So you
We were
lost nothing, is what you're saying.
yeah. No. We had nothing and we lost about 20 grand.
Okay.
So yeah,
right.
it was bad. So we started off our year in the whole 20 grand. And then the coronavirus hit and they had we lost Adepticon, which was going to be my largest year in sales in an event ever. And that was gone. So now we've just been hit again. And so we were we had to work our way out of it. You know, we could have just chosen to crawl into a hole and hope to weather the storm or work our butts off. And so that's what we did. A lot of people told us that you can't do online classes. It doesn't work. And I think we've proven that it totally works. So that has been fantastic. Really, really good experience. We've gotten so much like unbelievable feedback. Like, do you know when you try really hard and you put something out there and then it just hits a brick wall? Like, it just doesn't work, right? It doesn't matter the amount of effort you put into it. Like, let's say a contest entry. This is the best thing I've ever made and everyone hates it. Except for hopefully your mom. And that didn't happen this time. Like, we've gotten the reviews.
My mom liked it.
Yeah, exactly. The reviews we've gotten off our online classes and stuff are amazing. And it's almost embarrassing. Like, you start reading them and you're like, wait a second, is this Eilate trolling me? Like, what do you mean this was really good? You know? And so that's been awesome. You know, so especially the way our year started off, being so bad and us wondering like, what the heck are we going to do? I had just moved to Georgia, you know, it was like the whole apple cart had been upset, you know, and it was really amazing. It's funny how this year's gone. I mean, we've seen it in our Patreon and in, you know, just friends and stuff. Like, there's like waves of kind of depression, like people going to the hobby, like, you know what, I'm just not into doing hobby right now, whatever. And then they come out of it and it's super awesome. You know, we've kind of gone through the same thing, but we, you know, I don't know. It's been a busy year. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And so for a year that started out as probably the worst year of my life, it ended up probably the best year of my life. And for Liz as well. That's awesome. So that's super amazing. Like, yeah.
For those that I had the privilege to attend your two classes online, your airbrush class and then your NMM class, both spectacular classes. Check Aaron out. Look at his schedule. You have another one coming up. I think is it blending?
We have the fundamentals of blending class. Yeah. So what's funny is the blending class should have been the first one. The NM class definitely made it very clear that everyone, including the best painters, needed to work on their blending, which is what we all got to do, you know? And so we are going to sit down. We're not going to paint any figs. We are going to learn how to blend several different ways. And if it kills you, that's what will happen. But we are going to learn how to do this. And we have full Discord thing that we work for doing feedback and stuff. And it's a week long, like it's a 4-week program. It's very intense. You get all of your video stuff is for life. So everything that you get, all the videos, all the video reviews, because I do one daily each day with a Discord, which is really important. All that stuff is available to you forever. So, you know, it's a pretty cool program.
Cool.
That being said, awesome. I'm trying to get back into gaming too, Derek and Jen. Everybody else. Like, I just got my first gaming table. We moved into a house, and it's the first like house that I've personally had myself, you know? And so we have a garage, which is amazing. And I bought a table with my last stimulus check and and lights and everything. And then it was too cold to be out there. So now it's starting to warm up and like I've got a tableware game mat and that's it. So I need to start building some terrain and I just painted an army, 12-hour army, fully done. Boom, I'm ready to go. I just need a friend to play with. So if anybody knows anyone who plays 40K in the Grovetown area,
awesome.
That'd be cool.
Thanks, Rhonda. Got you plenty of time to work out an idea.
Yeah, now I'm going to represent the underachievers because I know you're out there, my fellow underachievers. So what did I learn from the pandemic in terms of painting? I as things were starting, when it first started, I'm like, well, what difference does this make really? Like, I sit in my room and paint. Like, how is my life that changed? And yet, just because of everything that was going on and the weight of the knowledge and everything, it was like nothing changed and everything changed. It was this really weird mental headspace to be in. And I've found that my ability to focus has changed, and those detail blending for days things that I'm kind of known for, that is really hard for me to do right now. But between that and just the projects that I've had to work on, I've actually been spending a lot of time doing tabletop stuff and exploring dry brushing and washing, which I actually kind of skipped over when I learned to paint. Like, I tried to do it and it didn't work. And I'm like, well, I understand what they're talking about with this layering. I'm just going to go straight to that. And I'm not going to bother with this crap. So I circled back around to it later, but not in a very thorough way, just kind of enough to teach people and stuff. And so I've been doing more of it. I'm like, oh, there's a lot more depth to this. There's a lot more to think about with this and what you can do with it and what you can get out of it. And it's just been really interesting going back in time and doing kind of the work I should have done in the first place, I guess. But it's given me an opportunity to do it now. So I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's funny when all of this went down. I was thinking the same thing. I travel a ton for my job, and I haven't been on a plane in well over a year. I thought, oh, I'm going to have all of this time to do all this stuff. And I look at my total production over this last year compared to what it normally is, and it's pretty much the same. Rhonda, your thing about focusing for a long period of time and just sitting there, that was hard for me this last year too, just to say, and this was pre-puppy. Puppy just totally messed everything
Yeah,
up.
no.
But
you knew that would
pre-puppy,
happen.
yeah, yeah, it was that you sit down and you start working and then you're like your head starts racing about what everything else is going on. Do I need to be worried about the real world and not? But at the same time, in saying that, it was still a nice escape at times. But like Derek said, I had all these grand plans of kicking out all of this great stuff, and it ebbed and flowed a lot. I mean, I would be high, da, 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 and then I would go for a period of time where I nothing, right? And my business is I've got a quote unquote more traditional job, and there was a lot of drama there. But yeah, it was the whole hobby time thing was different, and it was a different time too, and that's why I'm hard predicting a normalcy return in June, July-ish time frame, because selfishly I want ReaperCon to happen, and I'm tired of this shit. I want to go back into seeing people, and I love doing these things, and I love us playing Nightheart Gaming and doing the Crow's Nest and all that stuff, but I want to see people. I was talking to Michelle, and I'm going to get onto another question here in a second, the other day.
But I
Because
do
when
just
we
want
all
to
get
add one more
together,
thing onto that topic
yeah,
before we change.
yeah.
Just take from this lesson, because I'm sure lots of people listening have been having the same thing. Or maybe last year was great and next year something happens and it sucks. Like, just be kind to yourself. Like, if you can't do what you normally do, try something else, try some terrain, play a game. Like, don't beat yourself up because you're not doing the thing you expected to be able to do or that you are normally able to do. Like, that's not going to be productive. It's trying to push yourself when you can't isn't the answer. Like, invite yourself to explore something else.
That's a good point. What about you, Jason? How was your
What
2020?
about me? Well,
You're
pretty much
the co-host.
very similar. A couple things that I've isolated, which is a good word for this year. I didn't realize, because I work at home all the time and because it is my job to work at home, I hadn't realized how much going to galleries and art shows and craft fairs and antique fairs and repurposing fairs and that kind of thing. We try to do a couple of those a month. And I didn't realize how much that fed into my whole process for creativity. And for me, I can look at pictures all day long and get inspired by them online and all that, but I still like to see stuff in 3D. And I was missing, I am still missing that part of that. So that's one thing. So my focus, I had a similar thing going on where the first few months I was rolling, and then now it's a little bit frayed to keep the focus going. So I did notice that. I've been online more. I mean, we've all been online a little bit more between gaming and trying to help out with publicity and doing this show and that sort of thing. So that's been a whole new learning experience for me that I don't regret. And that's some of the stuff I hope to continue. But I'm anxious as well for it to get back. And I'm watching you strain to manifest that, Michael.
I'm putting all the good energy I can into that. Jason, do you have a question or a topic for the panel?
On painting? Yeah,
Sure.
I had one. What's your ride or die? Lost on a desert island. You got one box to put a painting kit in. What do you have in it?
How big is this box?
You're on a desert island, so you had to swim with it.
Do we have electricity?
No, you need to limit Aaron. You need to limit Aaron because he'll go on forever, like he just did. So let's limit him. I'm going to put a timer on it.
4 hours later.
Your figure case.
All right. So let's say
figure transport.
Let's say
case.
5 to 10 colors. 5 to 10 colors.
Well, not just colors, tools, basing stuff, the whole nine.
That's good addition there, definitely.
Yeah, knives. What do you use? What do you use the most often?
And knives you could repurpose to kill your dinner.
Yeah, you don't need brushes because you can chew up a twig. I know that. That's how I. Okay.
Well,
bring a live weasel in a box.
Did I not give you guys enough parameters? Why don't we
did.
start with Derek?
I'm in Georgia now. We use a shotgun, Jason. I mean, come on, knives. You can knock a robot right out.
Bring a pair of Kolinsky sables, live weasels, and then farm my own brush hairs. And,
yes, keep replenishing the supply. That's smart.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But it takes those brush makers like 7 years to learn to do it.
Let's see, prep tools, a sharp X-Acto, and then a few little scraps of sandpaper, some grits of sandpaper for filing mold lines or sanding off mold lines, a little bit of green stuff, and a dull X-Acto for tooling. Let's see, get a white and a black, and aged bone is one of my Reaper Master Series warm gray that goes into just about every figure. And we could do a clear blue, clear yellow, clear magenta, and from all those you could mix everything.
There you go.
Well, there you go. See, that's how you answer it, Aaron.
Yeah, but we're not going to Aaron.
I'm going to bring a chisel and a hammer because I'm going to start carving sand. Yeah. There's no more of this painting.
Well, Derek did leave out the actual miniatures.
Derek doesn't even have any miniatures to paint.
He's
going to be finger painting or something.
I'm going to harvest shells from the ocean. And
so what would you take along with you?
Who, me?
Aaron.
Hold on, I got to set up a timer for Aaron. Hold on.
Yeah, 1, 3, 2, 1, go. I need an ochre. I need a black. I need a white. I need the primaries, and then we need a good teal and a magenta because I need to make purple. We're at 5, 4. The pressure's on. I need lots of super glue. None of that plastic glue. That stuff. Just disgusting. I need a zip kicker. I need a knife. I need my airbrush. I need a gerbil to run a mill.
Sure.
We're going to create our own power. I mean,
right.
Because Derek and I are going to be on the same island, right?
Well, Derek will rig one up on a bicycle like the professor did.
Are these different islands? So I would want some crappy brushes, some hobby brushes. I'd want some Kolinsky sables, and yeah, I don't know what else. Terrain. You need tufted grass, some assorted tufted grass, and maybe some of that gamer grass because it's super dope. I don't need pumice because I got ground. You know what I need? I do need putty. I prefer Abe's epoxy sculpt. I need some blister pack foam sponges, for making sand. And what else? I can't bring my computer.
No.
Doesn't fit in the box.
Yeah. What about porno magazines? No?
Well,
okay,
I suppose in a waterproof Ziploc bag, maybe.
You do realize what time of day this show is airing.
The show just broke. Yeah, I'll have some coloring books. What else?
Okay. Well, you're
I don't know.
well into your second life raft now.
Yeah, I need the primaries. I need ochre. I need ochre's important. I love Baylor Brown and Mornfing Brown. I don't know. Those are my two favorite colors.
Okay. No, that's all very valuable. That was a good answer. Great answer.
Cool.
How about you, Jen?
And it was relatively short too. I like that.
Yeah,
it was good.
I know. What's going on?
What's up, Jen?
So if I'm painting on a desert island, I think I would skip the prep tools and probably the basing tools because nobody's ever going to see this stuff except me. And so if there's mold lines, whatever.
Well, we didn't need the fatalistic viewpoint of it, but if that's
Very
the last
practical
thing on earth you're going to do, don't you want to make it as good as possible? So
I like where she's going on this.
All your imaginary friends.
Yeah.
No, under those circumstances, I just want it to be a relaxing activity, and you know,
I'm just worried about your rescuers looking down and saying, "There lies Jen Greenwald. She cheaped out on the base."
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I'm dead, I don't care. So
what colors? What colors would you bring?
A black, a white. I'm not really a mix your own color kind of girl, so I would probably bring, a couple of the purples that I like, and as much as I could fit into my gallon baggie of paints that I shove into my suitcase.
The airplane that will go.
Yeah. And
right, Rhonda.
3 or 4 good brushes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like Jen already has a go bag.
Yeah. So hold on, let me look inside. Okay.
But I would also bring some diamond files, very small. They'd hardly take up any space in my very limited Jason allotted box. What else? Like Jen, I can mix colors. I don't enjoy it as much as some people, so I would probably want to supplement a little. Blue liner, definitely. I mean, I'll use black, but I'd rather use blue liner a lot of the time for shading. And then what's that yellow we like now, Michael? Mold yellow? That new one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like the one that got discontinued, but I'm not going to tout the virtues of a discontinued paint.
Yeah. Don't get into my wheelhouse now. Hold on.
I was assuming that miniatures would just be rolling up in the surf, so I wasn't counting those.
Sure. We'll just
in
say,
the things we have to bring.
Yeah. The last person who brought miniatures but nothing to paint them with, and they've expired, sadly.
So I'm gonna just wander the wilderness looking for basing materials. I'm not gonna pack a lot of those, but glue is good. Glue doesn't last forever, so hopefully these are 1-part miniatures that are rolling up on the surf. Because you got about 2 years on your glue.
Now I understand that's why Aaron brought a lot of super glue though, and the zip kicker.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
those multi-parts, they'll go right
I
together.
wait
And
around.
stick with that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. All right.
We'll put them all
good.
together
So,
in the
Michael,
first 2 years.
9487 mold. Yeah, 9487 yellow mold.
So is that what
I'm going to add something to Michael's question.
All right. Okay.
Since you are the king of going on walkabout and finding these things to put on your base, tell us what you would bring to your desert island and what you would look for on the desert island to use for basing material.
Yeah, because I like Jen's idea. I don't think I would take any basing material with me.
No, we've already overruled that.
Yeah.
You're going to be judged on your base by who's ever rescuing you. It's not good enough they leave you right there.
Paint-wise, the clears, the Reaper clears, I think are great. White and black are great. I would probably take all of the Reaper discontinued paints that I like to promote on the Crow's Nest on a weekly basis that nobody can possibly ever get. So the Dusky Skin Triads, there's some great paints from an old line of remember, what was that? What was that mech line that Reaper did that they discontinued all those colors from
Heavy
that
gear.
we all loved around it.
Heavy gear. Yeah. Oh, there's some amazing heavy gear
Oh,
colors.
there's some great colors there that you guys will never have exposure to. No, you know what? I would probably grab a set of, if I had to do it really quick, I would grab a set of the bones paints. I think they're just so versatile. And I'd just be like, I got to grab that. If my go bag is like, you got to get it now and you got to go, I would have a little kit all ready to go of the bones paints, and that would be good. Now, what was the second part that you added, Jason?
What would you go looking for in the scrub on the island?
All right. Well, it all depends on what kind of miniatures washed up on the shore, and so what was the inspiration related to it, right? But I like to find lots of bark, different kinds of bark. Bark can be utilized. It could look like a cliff. It could look like normal terrain. You could make it into. You could take my exact, because I brought an X-Acto blade too. I failed to mention that. I can carve it into bricks or whatever. So I would want to make sure that I brought my X-Acto blade, and I think Derek forgot an important part. You need replacement blades. It doesn't take up much space, but you need those replacement blades too, because if one breaks, you kind of, your handle, you might find another use for it. But plus, you need those little varmints that you need to kill and strip their hair so you can remake your brushes when they start wearing out. You need more blades for that too. So that'd be the only thing that would be what I'd add as well. And I don't
Blue
think
tack.
you need,
That's what we forgot.
Oh, well, I think we could make our own blue tack, because if I'm on a deserted island, it's going to be tropical. So there's probably a rubber tree plant, and I can milk the rubber tree plant if that's what it actually happens, and maybe formulate my own.
You'll be able to do it.
Interesting kind of milking.
Yes, you can milk anything, I guess, is what I saw in a movie once. But yes.
So that's great. So let's say your miniatures are Baroque French restaurant staff. What would you look for basing materials?
Oh, so these were miniatures sent to me by George R.R. Martin then?
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to base them. Trick question.
I that's where I went with that.
There you go. Very good. Okay, just for the last bit of my question, show of hands, who would actually bring an optivisor or a set of reading glasses?
I meant to say that, actually.
I'm not showing these to anybody, so I don't need to see what I'm painting.
Yeah.
Well, there you
I
go.
can't see anything.
Very good.
I can't see
Okay, well, thank you. Now,
so bad that
it's back to you, Michael, for another pithy question.
But you need enough contrast. It's not just tabletop. You're going to hold it up on the beach while the ship is going by. And if it reads from a mile out, if there's enough contrast on your mini there, they'll draw them right in.
Rescue you if
someone mentioned that your volleyball could actually be fairly judgmental. So,
well, that's a tip for the audience. Do you have enough contrast to see it from the rescue ship? No, go back and put more contrast in.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
All righty. Is it my turn now?
All right, your turn.
All right. So I've got a few questions here, and I've been kind of going back and forth on where to go next with this. Competitions, and as we have, as people progress within the hobby and they're learning, they're feeling more comfortable with their painting styles, and they start entering their first competitions. Think back. For some of us, it's much further back than others. Pretty much everybody on here has been around a while, but
great.
If you could go back to your younger self when you were entering those first competitions, and what would you tell yourself now that you didn't really know at the time? It could be style and what you could work on and everything, but setting expectations, being realistic with the hobby, the enjoyment, however you want to go with that. And I see Derek again. He's nodding. He seems the most confident of all the people on the panel. I'm going to go to you, Derek, first. Yes.
I think the first paint contest that I entered was at a Gen Con, and I had just brought some figures to play some miniature tabletop games with, and I didn't know that there was going to be a contest there, but I put the best ones from my army into the contest, and I got some prizes out of it.
Of course,
But
because
I
you're
think,
Derek.
well, okay. The figures that I entered were mostly copies of studio paint jobs that I'd seen in the magazines. And so I guess I had done well enough with the technical skills that the blending and the freehanded stuff looked okay, but they weren't original. And as a judge now, I'm looking at not only the technical skill and creativity, but also that originality in paint and color schemes. I think with the sculptor panel yesterday, the sculptors talked a lot about imitating and just trying to achieve results on your sculpting that you've seen on other people's sculpting and building your skills and techniques that way. And that's great for painting because we see examples of other people's painted work all over the place now with online galleries. But I think if you can then find your own spin on a miniature, find your own voice, your color palette, your sort of your mood that you can bring to a piece, then that'll help your miniature stand out among the other entries in the paint contest.
Cool. Hey, Rhonda.
Even from the beginning, I always went to a contest with the attitude that I can't control what anyone else does. So I could have done my best thing, but if everyone else who showed up did freaking amazing stuff, well, then I'm not going to win, and that's just how that works. So I never really had a big problem with that. I have this expectation that I've achieved this level and this is going to happen. Especially with, I mean, now contests we have stuff like the Reaper. And I'm totally blanking on the name of our own
Full
contest
color.
right now.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
No, the one at
color.
ReaperCon. The ReaperCon
MSP
Open.
Yeah,
the MSP Open. We didn't have that medal type system where everybody got. You were competing against yourself. Back in the day, it was all like top 3 podium style. You either made a cut or you didn't. And sometimes you'd get to know kind of what was first cut, so you sort of get feedback of at least I was in the running. But that was the best you could hope for. But I think a problem that I had, and that I do see other painters that I speak with after the contest or online, is it's really easy to just focus on your strengths and what you're most interested in. So I was obsessive about blending, and I got good at it, and then I got better at it, and then I got great at it. And there's like a whole lot of stuff that I suck at because I didn't. I mean, occasionally I would say, okay, I'm not great at this. I should pay a little bit more attention to this. But I really needed to take a look at, I went deep on technical stuff, but other people, you might be like, well, I care about the story, and you've put hours of, you've got the backstory for all the figures in your diorama, and there's all this stuff, but then you're not making sure that the peg of the foot is actually down on the base. So it looks like the guy's kind of floating a little. There's a technical side and a creative side in our hobby when you talk about entering contests, and you kind of have to think about both. Or I've talked to people who are like, well, I'm not good at painting faces, so I'm just going to paint creatures and monsters or whatever. It's like, okay, but then should you be expecting to get to the same level of accomplishment, like recognition in terms of awards, as someone who paints the faces and paints the monsters and paints mechs and has that flexibility of being able to do a lot of different textures and surfaces and stuff? So it's if you get too in your tunnel, I don't think that's good. So my tunnel was I didn't explore creativity and story and things like that enough. I just worried too much about the technical side, and it's still something that I'm working against.
Jen.
So I have found that the painting contests I have entered that have been most successful and I have felt the best afterwards were the ones where I took a piece that I worked hard on, I did the best I could, but it wasn't necessarily the focus of, I'm going to put hours and hours and hours of effort into this piece, and it's going to be as perfect as I can make it, and it's going to be awesome, and I'm going to come back with an award. Those are usually when I was most disappointed. So I guess I would say, don't put the effort in, but if a particular piece doesn't go well, or a particular competition doesn't go well, it's not that's going to be the end of your painting career. So don't sweat it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Aaron.
Great. Ditto.
There we go.
I just say ditto to everybody else.
Ditto. You know, I wanted to add a wrinkle to your question the same question to you, but I wanted to add a little wrinkle. Especially when it comes to all of us have entered competitions where there's really just categories, but you have a long, extensive history with GW, right? How did you sometimes for these competitions, there's certain categories that you've got to find a miniature within that category. Is there something you can answer the original question, or you can go down this path with me? Identifying the right character within, how do you find that miniature within that category that's going to show well for you?
It's going to be better than that.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I mean, that's a hard one.
I mean, yeah. So this is a problem. So, and I've done it myself, and I've seen other people do it. I had a friend come up to me at Gen Con and say, "What do you think of my model? It looked great. It was the worst model they could have entered in that competition, in my opinion. Like, especially if you wanted to win. It was a nice model, nothing wrong with it. But like, when you got two staffs right in front of the figure, you can't see the face. Like, who cares? Like, it just like, so it is important to have the right model. What is the right model? I mean, some people like Jen Haley are really good at picking those models. Like, they're just really good at it. I'm not, because I pick from the heart, it's like, I just really like this Eldar Farseer, and it's not the best model, right? So the thing is, though, there's one thing in competitions, and everyone says the same thing: do what you want to do, don't worry about the judging, you have to paint what you like, yada yada yada. But there is a game that's being played, and that's the game to win the competition. So if you're like, hey, I don't want to play that game, and I don't care if I don't win, and then your butt hurt after the competition that you didn't win, well, guess what? You got to play the game. Just a little bit. Yeah. Now, that being said,
so are you saying pick to your strength?
So one of those things could be, yes, pick to your strengths. So I forget who said this. I think it was Jen Haley again. She goes, when I'm picking a figure, because I asked her, I go, you need to do a class on how to pick figures, because you pick really good figures, just all the time. Like, she doesn't have any well-painted, not very good figures, like, they're just all perfect, right? And she said when she picks a figure, she picks something that she thinks will be popular, and 2, it plays to the strength that she wants to portray in that painting. So like, Rhonda does the best hair out of anybody in the world. So if she chooses a bald figure, this Tibetan monk, that is the stupidest contest in the world, because she does the best. Unless the dude has just flowing armpit hair, he's just like, woo. Yeah. So it's one of those things too. This is what I see a lot of painters, because I teach about 50 private coachings a month. So I get a lot of different things. A lot of guys and girls are doing competition pieces and stuff. And I see a lot of times they will paint the crap out of a really bad model. And it's just like, this is fantastic. I can critique you on this particular model, but this particular model is not good. Like, this is not a good contest piece. The pose is very static. Like, it'd be like a dude just taking a dump in an outhouse. Like, maybe that would be funny. It'd be great. Well, I would really enjoy it. But maybe the other judges wouldn't enjoy it very much. Like, you can only see the guy's eyes through the slit in the wall. It's just like not a good contest miniature.
That's the only way some of my figures get painted.
All right. So, quick survey: how many guy and outhouse dioramas do we expect to see at next ReaperCon now?
I hope a lot, because if you're in my category, if I'm in the judging, Jason will be.
My question is, will Jason be sculpting us a monk with flowing armpit hair now?
No, but I'll do a sprue of bits for the toilet diorama. That'd be fine.
That would be.
Oh, that's even better. Cool. Yeah.
So maybe somebody needs a matchmaking service. Or the dating app, do you swipe left or do you swipe right on this miniature?
There you go.
And some people just don't. They're settling. Come on, people, don't settle for a bad mini. You're
Yeah,
gonna
That's
put
right. Ask
all
the
that
figure
effort in.
guru.
Let's
The
match
figure
you up
guru.
with a
Ask
good
Derek what he thinks you should paint.
Yeah.
You could sit in a little box with a crystal ball in front of you and the
there you go.
headgear and the
Yeah.
whole thing.
So I
signs
think
point to yes.
my challenge to painters right now is if you're an aspiring painter, you're like, hey, I'm starting to get this. It's getting better. I'm knocking pins over on my desk. I'm starting to get better at this. I think I'm a pretty decent painter. Don't pick a bad mini to be like, I'm the guy who painted that bad mini really well. Pick a mini that other good painters have already painted. Take a step out in faith and just be like, hey, I've got one of my private coaching students who's a very good painter, and he paints everything that everyone else is painting. All the top painters, he will paint that model, but he puts his own spin on it. And now it's scary because, Kirill Kanev has already painted that model. Jen Haley has already painted that model. Everyone knows what it looks like good, the chances are yours won't be as good. But I think that is also helping push him ahead because he's painting models that are already been done by fantastic painters, and he's putting them out there to be judged by the world, And even though you could say, well, I just post on Facebook and I don't care, you do care.
If you dial that in a little bit, though, if you're a judge and you walk into a painting competition and there's 10 of the same model and there's 3 that stand out as individuals, where is your eye going to go?
Well, at that point, you really do have to. I mean, there was this one really lame contest where we all had to paint this pug. And no, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah.
so like the pug, everyone painted that pug, and there was lots of cool different versions of that. I forget who won best painted on that one, but it was me. But no, it's just one of those things where then you really are looking at color and style and like, did they? Yeah. Let me pat myself on the back. No, but you really are looking at style and color. That's the kind of cool thing. Dark Sword did a contest when Miniature Monthly first started where everyone painted the same model. And it was really cool to see that model in so many different ways. And like some of them, you're like, I would have never thought of that. So it does, that would make it much more difficult for judging. But I'm talking more on a learning curve type of thing. Okay. There was a piece that Jen Haley did one year and she got best in show with. It's the opera singer. And Rhonda did the same piece, I think in the same year. and I love Rhonda's piece because it's like she's singing and she had this glass in front of her on the table that was exploding. And I just thought, like, I will remember that piece till I die because that piece like reaches out and touches you. It was an opera singer, painted really well, and stuff was happening. And I don't know. I still think that it's good to copy, like not copy, but just do stuff that is already popular. One, you have really good references for how it should look or what it could be like. And 2, you're kind of just putting yourself out there. I know it's scary because now you're getting judged against a Michael Proctor or a Derek or a Jen or a Rhonda, but I think that's good though, as far as growth goes, But yeah, I mean, cool. At the end of the day though, paint what you like, but if you're trying to push to get that award or whatever, you got to play the game a little bit too, and yeah.
Cool. And that's just as true whether it's popular vote, because how much people like the model makes a huge difference in popular vote. They're not just looking at your technique and your skills and all that stuff. They're looking like, do I like this figure? Does it grab me? Does it tell a story to me?
Yeah, and you got to remember at the end of the day, like let's say all of us are in a contest together and we're all painting the same model and they all turn out fantastic. Well, let's say we didn't paint the same model. Let's say Michael paints the coolest model, but we've all painted them equally as good. You can't say at the end of the day when the judge is looking at it, he's like, yeah, but that model's awesome, and not just the paint job, the model itself too, maybe how he did the basing. I know like in painters category, we say the basing doesn't factor in, but you can't tell me at the end of the day, the basing doesn't factor in. That's like looking
it factors, but it's a small amount.
It factors, but if all things are equal, that's
at the end of the day, okay, which one won? Michael's or Rhonda's?
Yeah. If
You
we're
know,
giving both of them an A
Michael didn't
plus,
do any basing at all, which is amazing
yeah,
because he always does basing. And Rhonda did, and her basing looks
yeah,
really legit. Like that will push it over. It'll push it
yeah,
over the edge. Same with conversions and stuff. You know, like
right,
there's little things like that that do make a difference. You know, they don't technically, like if it was a clear, like I did a conversion, it was great, my basing was great, but my model was painted really badly. Well, yeah, sure. Then the other one that's painted more technically better will win. You know,
yeah,
but when they're the same, okay, now I have three things over you, you know, like, like it kind of is what it is. So, you know, play to your strengths for sure. Like doing, like if you're horrible at basing and you do a horrible base on a beautiful model, like perfect example at Privateer Press one year, this guy did one of their walkers and he put freehand all over it. And the freehand was really bad. The paint job itself was really good, but the freehand brought it from a gold back down to a bronze, and that's the difference. So, like, you know, if you're trying, it's always good to learn a new skill when you're doing contests because that kind of pushes you. But at the same time, maybe don't do a skill that you're really bad at right now. Like practice it more on for the next year. You know, like
right.
be smart about it.
Well,
You
cool.
know, because you don't want to you know step on your own feet.
Yeah, thanks. Jason, what do you got? What's on your list of next questions or for the
Well,
panel?
I was still waiting to. I was imagining the conversation between the young Aaron Lovejoy and the old Aaron Lovejoy about painting. Anyway,
I would
I
say
think that
talk
would
to
have
more
been very
painters. That
interesting.
would be
Yeah.
the conversation there because when I first started, nobody talked at
Okay.
all.
Well, here's a question. It's sort of, kind of maybe right pre-competition. You've done what you think is the best job on your model. You're very happy with it, or you think it's going to do well, and you look around. What is the last tweak? Is there like a last tweak that you can imagine doing to a model that just brings it out? Rhonda.
I highly recommend, and we're all really bad about doing this for contests, like give yourself time before the contest to sit with the finish or what you think the finished miniature is. So what I do now, I reset up my studio recently, and I have a shelf where my work in progress miniatures are at eye level, and I have to pass by them a couple of times a day. And I will stop and look at them and kind of just think about, is everything gelling? Does it look like what it's supposed to be? And especially once you think you're done, do that. Have your model somewhere where the lighting's decent, but like
Mm-hmm.
not amazing. You don't have to have spotlights on it or something because remember, judges are looking in crappy display cases and poorly lit hotel rooms. Um, so you want it to look good in normal lighting, and that's another reason for doing this. And just sit with it. Like don't stare at it for hours and hours, but stare at it for a few minutes here and there, and just if listen if there's a little voice in the back of your head saying, oh, you know what, that face doesn't really show up, or oh, the folds in that cloak, the contrast isn't really as deep as I thought it was. And the kind of changes you'll make after doing that sort of thing, it might take you an hour to put a little more shading here or add a glaze of some color there. They're not complex, they're not time consuming, but they can make a huge difference in the finished quality level and the impact of the
Is
figure.
is there a prompt that your inner voice says to you more often than not after you've done your
Oh,
let it
contrast,
gel?
100% contrast.
Is it contrast?
I'll sit there. Then I finish it at the night, and I'll be, look at me pushing the contrast. I finally did it, and I'll wake up the next morning and look at it. It's like seriously, did the paint fade overnight? Like, where did it go? It's contrast almost every time. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's a color tweak or something like that, but it's almost always contrast.
Derek, how about you?
Yeah, give it that squint test to see how the contrast is registering at a coarser level. And there's probably a few more glints of white or near white, and a few more places where you can deepen those shadows into near black. Um, the figure that I finished, I think last week, my Sea Elf Bard, I thought she was finished. I posted some figures, and then I looked back the next day, and the hair, something about the hair was bugging me. So I went back and I deepened some shadows and some highlights, and posted those photos again, and did a side by side, and was pleased to see that yeah, there was this thing that was nagging at me, and another hour or so of work made it just a little better.
Jen, how about you?
So I definitely agree with getting a little bit of distance from the figure before the contest, so that you can kind of evaluate it with fresh eyes that haven't been staring at it for the last 2-3 weeks or whatever. And putting it aside on a shelf is a good way to do that. I have found that getting pictures of it and at the pictures, like Derek was talking about, are also very helpful. There have been a number of times where, oh, hey, I think I'm done with this figure, and I go and I get pictures from my blog and I post them up on my blog, and then I'm looking at it and going, oh, there's actually some rub off, or a random piece of cat hair, or occasionally something as bad as, oh, I missed that entire piece of jewelry, I need to go back and finish it, that I will sometimes pick up just by getting a little bit of distance from the figure and being able to look at it fresh.
Kind of to build on the initial question, and this one I wanted Jen to answer after looking at some of the miniatures she's done over the years. Is there a definite stopping point for you, or do you always feel like there's a little bit more that you could have done?
So there's probably always more that I could have done, or more that anybody could do to perfect a particular figure. But for me, a lot of times when I'm done with a figure, it's because I'm sick of looking at it, at which point trying to put more effort into it is not necessarily going to be helpful. And I've had people come to me and say, well, this would be so much better if you went back and did this and this and this. I'm like, yeah, thank you for the feedback. I will apply that to my next miniature, because this one is done because I'm sick of it.
Good.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Aaron, how about you? And you know what? On the tail end of your answer, instead of is there anything you would have continued to do, I want to know if you ever hit a point where it's the chuck it bucket time.
Like where you just it's not even a contest entry anymore. Yeah, there's been
as a sculptor, I learned that's one of the most valuable skills, is knowing when to just stop and start a different thing.
Yeah, because there is a point of diminishing returns where all the changes you make just make it worse and worse and worse. Have you? I mean, right. I've had that model where I was like, I don't know what I just did. This looks fantastic. Let's keep doing it. And then an hour later, you're like, what happened to the fantastic paint job? Like, that is the worst feeling ever. And the problem with that is it doesn't let us experiment. It teaches us not to experiment, and you don't want to do that. So that's why I like sketches at the start of a paint job, because you can experiment a lot. In 2 hours, that's not very much time to throw it away, to start over.
So what's your last tweak? If you have a last tweak that you notice that you need to
push contrast and highlights, make sure everything is very in focus. So dark lining gets tighter. Fix the tiny mistakes in between things. Also, I've been finding, and this is much easier to do with the airbrush, but having your subtle contrast. So a very subtle shadow that goes up the entire model that's a little bit darker maybe at the bottom than at the top, but it's even light all the way up, can look very, very realistic and really cool. And so pushing those things, pushing the shadows at the end, pushing the highlights. I'm the guy who literally finishes the paint job 15 minutes before turning it in, so I don't have the opportunity to sit there and look. But I will say, Rhonda, your idea of an eyesight level shelf with the models, that's really good, because what I do is I carry the model around with me all the time, usually to the bathroom, and usually when I have to take a giant dump. And so I know I'm going to be in there for a while, and I will just sit there and just kind of squeeze as I look at the model. And I don't take it in the shower. I draw the line there. But I've looked at many of them.
That's your squinting, Derek. It's just a different take on your squinting.
Yeah. Well, first I was going to say that Aaron has a baby Bjorn to carry your miniatures around on.
It's the poop check. We call it the poop check.
All right. All right.
So demanding
Yeah.
accountability from your models is or your models demanding accountability from you actually by putting them on the shelf, or
Right.
in Aaron's case, taking them to the commode.
To the bathroom. Yeah.
Michael,
Yeah.
how about you? What's your last
You know,
go-to?
these are all super great examples. And one of the best lessons I learned in entering competitions was to not paint, not pull an Aaron Lovejoy and paint up to the last minute. For me, those were never the best, most successful pieces. The ones that I could finish well ahead of time, to sit on that shelf to look at and stuff. But the last few things are picking out those highlights getting those highlights even higher and focusing them even more. But for me, a lot of the time with my basing, I'm trying to create the base where people will look at it from what I would like to call, from my photography background, kind of the money shot. This is where I want you to see the miniature first. And that's what I want your lasting image to be. And a lot of times when I'm doing stuff for commissions or whatever, I try to control the photography so I can work on that particular angle. Focus on that. Make sure you finish everything as well. Doug Jones, if you guys remember him, one of the best advice he gave me when I was first starting off, he's like, I go, can you critique this for me and like judge it? Like, you know, I know that you judge. He turned it upside down right away. He goes, you didn't paint underneath it. Make sure you paint underneath it. That's a key thing too. That was one of my first mistakes, but yeah, thanks.
Well, the angle thing is important. I mean, we do that as sculptors when we're sending in renders or pictures of our miniatures, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get the optimum viewing angle. Often that's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult, especially on larger pieces. All right, well, it's your turn to ask a question.
I have a question that I haven't fully formulated, but I know Rhonda and I have talked about this multiple times.
Well,
It's as
push
you
it out.
progress. I'm gonna pull Lovejoy here, and I'm gonna really
Yeah.
grunt this one out. But
Yeah.
as you progress in your painting and as you get better, there's times when you learn to see how good you are and how you compare to others, right? And sometimes it takes time to develop your eyesight, your view, whatever, your voice within that, so you can see how your stuff's really comparing to that. Do you have any like personal stories you want to share for your development through that process? Because it was a challenge that I went through, and when we're at the cons, I talk to people where sometimes we have to reset their expectations of where they are and where they can go. Does that make sense, Rhonda?
I'm not 100% sure it makes sense. So, comparing yourself to other people and being realistic about where you are in
Yeah,
comparison to other
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
Um, there's a part of learning to do artistic things that we don't talk about a lot in our hobby, but they don't even talk about it a lot. Like new people just don't think about it. It's not just your hand. It's not just the painting and the sculpting and what's going on with your dexterity and your physical abilities. It's what's going on in here and your eyes. And the sculptors were talking about this a little bit yesterday, the artist eye and stuff. It really changes. Like you may think you can see stuff, and then like 5 years on, if you looked at that same thing, you see it on like a whole other level. So there are points in your career where you probably literally can't see the difference between what you're doing and what this person who's doing better than you is doing. And that
Mm,
may not mean that you need to fix your dexterity and work on freehand and fiddly details and stuff like that. It may mean that you need to sharpen your critical abilities in seeing what is different between that miniature and this miniature. And I did have a moment like that in my painting, and it was after I'd spent years focusing on the blending and the technical stuff. And I did a miniature for Dark Sword, and Jen Haley did a miniature, the same one, because I think Jim was worried that she wasn't going to be able to finish it, so he assigned it to me, and then she finished it, and I finished mine, and they both got put up on the website. And I'm like, okay, her miniature is 100%, it's better than mine, but it's
mm,
not the blending. Like I'm within 10 to 15% of the quality of her blending. Like that's not
yeah,
the problem. So what am I not doing? And that just opened a whole world of so many things that I wasn't doing or paying attention to or aware of. And it was, I mean, it can be disheartening, but it's also fun because it's like, oh, here's all this new cool stuff I get to learn and explore and play around with. Because a lot of what I looked at initially was stuff she was doing with color or where she was putting the values and things. But like I use that miniature as an example in a class that I give. And I'll go through, and because people will be like, okay, well, what is the difference between the two pictures? I'm like, well, she did this and I didn't do that, and this and this and this. And I'm like, every time I tell you this, I see something new. Like, even having done this class for years, I still see new things that I can learn about the difference between our two pieces. So working on your critical eye, like not just looking at someone's paint job and going, oh, Aaron did this and it's so cool. It's like, what makes it cool? What do you like about it? What is he doing that you're not doing?
I think it's important that people realize, though, that it doesn't all happen at once, that it is a progression, that you have a certain tool set and you take that tool set and you keep looking, like you suggested, you keep looking at other people's work, you develop more tools, and then you develop more ability to see, and then you develop more tools and more ability to see. So most people don't start out at one level and rocket to the top. It's almost always a progression. Everybody has a different pace through that progression, but it's always a progression. And so you need to be accepting of that and allow yourself to make that progression. That was just a little philosophy. Sorry. Didn't mean
I loved it. That was great. I didn't, I mean, did you get that in the fortune cookie or?
Yeah. Yeah. Right here. I got a whole bucket of them.
Perfect. Derek.
Yeah, so I can remember a few figures in my painting career where I recognized that this was a quantum leap up from what I had done with anything before. Like the blending or the colors or the freehand or something. Oh wow, I didn't know I could do this before, and now I've done it, and I feel this like level up accomplishment. And now I look back and it's like, wow, that's 10 levels below where I am now, but at the time that was the best thing I could do, and I derived some pride from accomplishing that. I'm thinking about when we had some of our discussions as judges of the MSP Open, and when painters come to us and they say, I got a silver, but what can I do to make this a gold? Or I thought I was going to get a gold, why did I get a silver? And we talked about the not taking somebody else's figure that was a gold and saying, see what they did so much better than you? See why yours is so much worse than this one? I think we briefly discussed the idea that some of us would take the same figure and deliberately paint it to a standard that we would think would be like gold, silver, bronze certificate, and then say, well, here's why this figure would rank that way, to get the artist's ego out of it. Right. But there are things, if there are subtleties, or even there are aspects of a figure that you can't see if you don't have the eye for it or the experience to look for it. I think Glenn yesterday was talking about the analogy to music, and how as a musician, when you can play or when you've heard certain things, you'll listen for it in other compositions that might be completely lost on somebody who doesn't have that aptitude for it. And I sometimes imagine this like universe of painting topics that each of us is exploring. And like you start from a certain place, but then you're going to explore the blending galaxy over here, or there's like the color theory nebula over there. And there are some things that maybe nobody has ever explored, but you're not going to get there until you've gone to some of these places that become part of your known universe of painting, sculpting, whatever your creative endeavor is. Some people will explore one aspect over another because it appeals to them more. But just imagine like the space of your universe is growing and stretching as you're exploring more.
That's very holistic. I like that.
But then there might be wormholes where you suddenly like disappear from one part of your universe, and hey, I've become a color theory master without ever painting anything in color. And I don't know, you can stretch that analogy any which way, but just different analogies or different ways to envision things may work for certain people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Where is that particular wormhole, Derek?
Yeah. I've been looking for that as well. Yeah, I'm looking for the blending wormhole.
Say the
It's
guys
fun
who
when
are
he
good at
encountered it,
color.
so
I
we'll
mean,
never
yeah.
find it again.
No, I'm looking for the blending wormhole myself, but yeah.
Okay.
Good to go.
I
Is it
think
my
we have a
turn?
couple questions in the chat.
Oh, I just Jason wanted to forward that question down to Jen or to Aaron, or
I
did we
thought it was your
already ask
question,
that?
but sure, I would like to hear
Yeah.
Jen's opinion on your question that you asked, Michael.
Was it my question? I didn't think it was
We
my
all
question.
went through that wormhole, and
Oh,
now
I went through that wormhole too.
Where
I
we
got
are.
a little
What was
lost
the
there.
question again?
Yeah, what was the question? Anyways,
Uh,
all right. Jen, how would you like to add on to that anything, and let's explore the interdimensionalness of and wormholeness of the painting, all the painting options and paths you can take. Which
so I don't
wormhole are
remember
you
what the
looking
question
for?
was either.
Yeah,
But hearing
yeah.
everybody else talk, it has reminded me.
Right.
So since the pandemic started, my husband and I have been watching a lot of YouTube. And we pretty much started out with channels that were close to things that we were already doing. Like my husband does woodworking as a hobby, so we have a bunch of woodworking channels that he likes to watch. And I have some hobby-related channels that are on my list. But as time has gone on, since these guys only put out a video every week or month or whatever, those channels have started to dry up, and we've started branching out. Like he found a channel where there's a guy who talks about how you drive large container ships. And I found a channel where it's a opera singer and vocal coach who watches videos of various musicians and talks about their voice and their singing and how they do this. And these are topics that neither of us have any background in. But they have been fascinating to watch just because it is experiences that are so far removed from our own that you get in. It's a point where you get into the vocabulary they're using and you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's cool. So, I mean, I think that's kind of, that's us stepping into areas where we are complete novices, which is not unlike people who are just starting to paint and starting to get into it and, do not necessarily understand what we're talking about when we're talking about hue contrast versus value contrast, or why you want this kind of brush versus that kind of brush. So, it's something that it does take time and practice and experience to really start to learn and pick up on the nuances of what other people are doing and what the difference is between your skeleton where you put down a bone color and maybe a wash and a dry brush, and somebody who has gone through and done the meticulous blending and put some shadow or some color into the shadows and added more nuance to the piece.
I do remember now. It was Mike that I did start this question. So, J.B. Garrison asked. He said, "I wonder if pursuing a different art medium would lend its artist eye development back into mini painting." And I'm going to say yes, because even before getting into miniature painting seriously, I have a photography background. I have a photography degree, and I know I have utilized that many times, especially with my basing, but with my compositions as well. Having to frame stuff within a camera lens, within a set box. I think of that when I'm doing my compositions. Even if I'm doing just a bust that's not going to have any basing around that, I look at doing that. I'm going to go to Rhonda first because I know she's got an answer. What other outside art miniature painting medium, because I know, for example, on your postings on Facebook, you've done a lot of that. How has that helped you when you're gone in those other 2Ds into bringing that back into miniatures?
So I started studying or restudying traditional art about 5 years ago, and my interests in that are pretty broad. So drawing, painting, all kinds of mediums. I have very little focus. I have art ADD, is how I think of it. So I just hop around from thing to thing. But it really, the more you think of a miniature as a two-dimensional drawing or painting, the more likely you are to be doing a bunch of the things that we're always yelling at you to do when we're giving you critiques and stuff. So the contrast, like if you just pretend it's like a coloring book or something, and you have to, even though it is in reality a three-dimensional physical object, you have to add in shading and where more light is and where less light is, and add in things to evoke the appearance of textures and stuff like that. The more of that you can do, the more you can think of it that way. I think that helps a lot in the pushing contrast and doing some of the stuff that we're looking at. But just really that learning to see thing just really went next level when I started, drawing from real life reference, because in most art forms, it's pretty typical. And I know that sculptors do this, but we as painters don't always, to go look at the thing. Like Julie yesterday said, her favorite thing is to go to the zoo to see animals move because it's different than just seeing them in a picture. But we don't even look at pictures. It's like, how many times have you painted leather? How many of us have sat down and actually studied some leather? And you think, well, I know what leather looks like, but you don't. Or trees. Like everybody paints tree bark brown. Go look at some trees. And a lot of the times it's more gray or it's more green than it is brown. But we have all this information in our brain that we think is true and we don't question it. The more you question it, the more you go look at real things, the more you can learn and expand kind of your parameters for improving your art.
Yeah, thank you. Aaron, what is something external artistic inspiration outside of miniature painting that you've been involved with, been connected to, that's then translated itself back within your miniature painting?
So I've gone on a journey this year of learning how to sculpt, or I started late last year into this year. Super frustrating. If I murder someone, it will probably be because of sculpting in 3D. But it's been really interesting. But one thing I've learned also is because 3D sculpting is so tied in with CGI and miniature video games and everything, now when I play video games, I'm looking at all the elements. I'm looking at how many bricks were made to actually make that brick wall in Call of Duty. It's 2, by the way. And they're just rearranged in a million different ways to make it look like a completely unique brick wall. But the other thing that I've learned, I posted a question on Reaper, on the Reaper forums a couple weeks ago about like using video game reference art books for reference, when you're painting. And like Rhonda said, how many times have you actually looked at leather? Well, in the 3D sculpting, I'm now in this email chain where they're trying to sell me brushes and all these things, shaders and stuff, so I can make my own video game. And I'm going to actually start buying some of them, not so much to sculpt those things or to make a movie about leather bags, moving around. But they're amazing resources. I mean, this one on leather was it's like $3. It's really inexpensive, and it just has all the things to make a leather bag look like a leather bag. And so there's different shaders, different photos, all this stuff. And you start looking at that stuff and you're like, hey, I could do this exact same thing in a miniature. Like it's the exact same thing. And so that has been real eye-opening right there. Like it just, and kind of cool too.
So you're talking about poly painting and shading on a 3D figure.
Yeah. Not only just sculpting it. Like, I mean, dude, when I take my walks now, I'm taking pictures of cracks in the ground and a tree bark, so I can make my own alpha maps. And, it's just like, it just has opened up a whole new thing.
It's the same thing they used to do with Photoshop. I mean, people took pictures on Photoshop and used them for alphas for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Rust was always a good one.
Yeah.
Bacterial growth, that was another good one.
Yep. So it's funny when you start looking at that stuff. Also, you start realizing, oh, this is what it actually, like Rhonda said, that's the actual color that this is. It's not what I thought, And then you put it down and it looks like what you thought it was, but it's not what you thought it was. I discovered this guy, Mural Joe, on YouTube. It's this young guy from Arizona, and he paints murals with the big old Frazee paintbrushes. They are freaking amazing. And he shows you how to do bark, how to do shadows, everything. And he is very, very good at what he does. And I started watching those, and I was like, I took fire effects from him. So now when I paint fire on a miniature, I don't paint the flames that were sculpted. I paint the flames within the flames that are sculpted. So, and that came from a mural video.
About a fortune cookie.
Yeah, it's amazing. Here's another one. So he is painting this dragon, right? And he's like, how do you know where it's the front of the dragon and the sides of the dragon? Where do you see that perspective? And he goes, the sides are desaturated. The front is where you get saturated light. And so I started doing that on miniatures. Same thing happened. It works really, really well. So, I mean, granted, it's a style. There's a million ways to skin a cat, but you can pick and choose from these different applications. In skateboarding, I used to rollerblade because I could jump higher on my rollerblades than I could on my skateboard at the time. Don't ever tell anybody that I rollerbladed because that's embarrassing.
I've lost a little respect for you right there.
Yeah, I lost a little respect for myself telling that story. Yeah. But the funny thing is I started getting better at skateboarding because I lost my fear of height,
Well, we learned a lot from you. We learned about the inline skating and the rollerblading and the pooping, and then that we are now
leave those rollerblades at home.
Well, we're also a little concerned for Liz's safety too.
Have you noticed Liz is not in the room? She's like, I'm out of here. Yeah. I cannot do this. I cannot.
No, yeah. She's on chat though, and we are all fearing for the future.
Yes, she confirmed the poop story.
I've talked about this a bunch of times on the Crow's Nest. I've taken a ton of. I love to play video games. I love the Dark Souls series, Bloodborne. And I'll be playing it, and I'll stop and I'll take screenshots of everything.
I do the
same
thing.
I have just files and files and files. And I know, Aaron, you mentioned art books that you bought from various video games as well. Those are great too. But I have on my on my iPad, I have folders of Bloodborne, folders of Dark Souls, and I just want the mood, the vibe. And I may not even recreate that.
You get the good lighting. Scene. Yeah. You're just like, this was really dark. How did they do that?
Right. And I think that's good to take into play. I mean, Derek, is there something outside of the miniature painting world, some artistic endeavor or non-artistic that you've, brought back into the hobby?
I've been thinking this over, but not coming up with something that I can consciously relate. But
next.
I sing, I play some musical instruments. I've been acting and voiceover acting and just exercising different creative activities in my brain and my body that way. And maybe there's something that subconsciously comes into my...
When you go that other route and completely let go of the miniature thing, does that recharge your miniature batteries then?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Sort of like circuit training for physical fitness. You could do one thing to exercise one group of muscles, and then go to a different thing to exercise a different group of muscles.
Yeah, and maybe, do you find, I'm going to stick with you for this, do you find that sometimes when maybe you're hitting that wall in your creativity in the miniature hobby, that's when you find yourself going off into these other directions so you can recharge as well?
Yeah.
I get this feeling, especially if I have finished something that I'm super proud of, I'm like super geeked about. I'm like, yeah, I really think I did a good job, which is extremely rare. But when that does happen, I'm like, this is so awesome. I got to keep this rolling. I got to keep this rolling. And I'll just automatically try to jump into something, the next thing. And I find that I need to, if I do that really too fast, that my next miniature kind of suffers from that. I need to take a little bit of a mental pause to let those batteries recharge or not. I don't know. I mean, maybe Jen, do you ever felt that way, or do you need to take breaks in between your pieces, or?
So my schedule is such that I usually have some time, between when I finish a figure and when I can really dig into the next one anyway. But even so, I find that often it's not well, I need to take a break and do something completely different. Sometimes that happens too, but a lot of time it's, well, I've just spent a lot of time painting 32 millimeter fantasy elves. I need to do something that is not that.
Okay.
So I'll pull out something to paint, but it'll just be a completely different kind of figure. Maybe it's a monster, maybe it's something larger scale, but something different.
Cool. What about you, Jason? I mean, as it goes into sculpting, but it's still a creative process. Do you need to take
it's a
little
bit
breaks in
creative,
between?
I'd say.
Yeah. No, you're here.
Do
You
I
know what
take
I
break?
mean.
Yeah, I think that you very often there is a temptation to keep rolling with it, but I'm more productive if I completely close the book before I open another one. And that's sort of the way I think about it. So very often even just little stuff like doing a logo or something for Ron in 2D, it's kind of nice to vary what I'm doing. Um, I like to do a lot of stuff. I'm really itching to get back into carving outside. Um, but that always refreshes my perspective on the current project. If I ever hit a wall like you're talking about, the first thing I do is reach for a different medium. And it doesn't really matter what. I mean, if it's just talking with my daughter about a t-shirt design or something similar to that, or making a poster, something like that will get me right back into the flow for sculpting.
Cool. Hey, do you have another topic for the panel today, Jason?
Sure. There was a question in chat, actually. What's your current work in progress? Maybe the one you're most excited about. I know a lot of people work several things at once. Rhonda.
It's something for Jim, so I probably can't talk about it, but it has a personal connection. So I'm excited that I'm gonna be starting that soon. I'm finishing up the Learn to Paint kit for Bones 5. So it's mostly the writing. I've done most of the painting. Now it's just sitting down and putting the finishing touches on the writing. So I think I finished the Leprechaun guy. So I think that's everything.
Jen? It doesn't have to be something you're doing for someone else. It could be doing something for yourself.
Yeah, I've got a couple of personal projects that I have prepped and are ready to go. One is a bust, and the other one is I just got a bunch of minis from a Kickstarter that I backed like 2 years ago that fulfilled. So I pulled one of those and I'm going to paint that. It's mostly an experiment. They're resin figures, and they cast really nice, but they've got a lot of straddle lines from when they were 3D printed on them still. So I'm doing one to see how much effort it's going to be to clean that up on the rest of them.
Aaron.
Sorry,
Aaron Lovejoy.
Aaron
Lovejoy, so we don't confuse
Aaron with the other one, Aaron. So I just finished a project. It was 2 models. Took about 60 hours. I can't talk about it, just like Rhonda. But following that project, I painted an army for myself, and that's what I'm super excited about. Although that project was really cool, I got to paint one of my favorite superheroes of all time. But the project right after it, I painted an army in 12 hours. Like, I was just like, I have a little bit of time, and I did it with my daughter. I did a video tutorial on how to do it, basically, on our Patreon. And I was like, hey, let's watch this video and see if it actually works. So my daughter and I painted my Necron army in 12 hours, and it looks freaking awesome. And I'm super excited. I'm more jazzed about that than anything else. I mean, it's low end gaming models, and I love it.
That's absolutely great. Derek, how about you?
I think Aaron needs to put up some signs on telephone poles around the neighborhood. Warhammer 40K player?
Yeah.
Come to this address.
Desperately
on demand.
Wear a mask.
Seeking 40K
Wear a mask.
Yeah.
We have a giant table in the garage.
Like a garage sale.
Social distance.
My work in progress is also for Jim at Dark Sword, and it's a project long in coming, and it coming soon. Not a soon TM, but an actual soon. Within a week or two, there should be an actual finished thing, and then that'll be, yeah. Then you'll see it.
Nice.
Great. Michael.
I'll drop the Jim name also. I think he's been very generous lately, sending stuff around. But it's actually a project that him and two separate projects, but one that involves Bobby Jackson, and some ideas that we wanted to try to resurrect some old ideas. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm super duper excited about that. I think it's going to be awesome when that's out there. And then another animal tribute, that's been long in the making as well. That's just around the corner. So I'm happy about both of those. But non-commission related, I've got always a bunch of things laying around. This is something from Mindworks Games, this little post-apocalyptic guy. I'm just super excited about going away from fantasy and doing a little steampunky. I like to try to shift back and forth as much as I can. I've been very heavy into fantasy, and I wanted to go into, and this RVE Con's kind of inspired me to do that as well. So yeah, but like you said, Jason, and pretty much everybody here, how many things do we really have going right now? I mean, I have probably 10 to 20 things, yeah,
sure,
that haven't been relegated to the shelf of shame yet. They still think that I'm going to work on them promptly. They don't know that they may be headed towards the shelf of shame. I just haven't put them there yet. Maybe because my shelf of shame is overfilling, and they just can't make it there yet. But yeah, that's right. I had a question for the group. It's an easy question, maybe. When I first started painting, and you're sitting in your little space and you're painting away, and it's really quiet, what's your background noise that's going on? For me, I used to watch TV, listen to music, but I've really found I've gotten into audiobooks. I just listen to audiobooks because I can just let everything go. Jen, I mean, is there something else going on when you're painting? When you're just down there in your paint room by yourself, or what else are you listening to anything else?
Usually it's Netflix.
Okay.
Recently I finished up all 80,000 seasons of Supernatural. It took me 2 years.
Do you look at the screen at all, or are you just listening to the story while you paint?
It is mostly listening. Occasionally I will look up and see what's going on. One of the things I watched recently was there's a series on Netflix about, it's historical drama, so it's more drama than historical, but it's about the Medici family. So it's a period piece, and they've got all of these lovely vistas of Florence during the Renaissance, which I was also replaying Assassin's Creed 2 at the time. So, I could look up and go, oh yeah, I know that building, I climbed it, sort of. Cool. But so that one I found, I found myself actually looking at it a little more often to see some of that and to see some of the costuming and that kind of thing. I find that I have to pick carefully what shows I'm going to have on while I'm painting, because it does need to be something that I can follow primarily by just listening to it. So like West Wing is awesome because you very rarely have to actually look at West Wing to see what's going on. So, anything where you can get most of the plot and characterization just through dialogue.
Yeah. What about you, Rhonda? Do you have any distractions, diversions while you paint?
So to me, it's important what kind of painting task I'm doing. So a lot of this, if I'm doing something I'm competent at and I can go on autopilot, absolutely audiobooks. My 2-year adventure is I'm on the last one finally of The Wheel of Time. This is how I met my husband, even with these books that I'm holding now, finishing up these books. Wow. And
I congratulate you. I made it about halfway through.
They're better as audiobooks, I think. And some of the things that irritated me reading them when I was younger, now when I came back to them, don't irritate me as much. I'm not sure why. But I am kind of, the last battle I didn't think about the fact that that meant I was going to have to listen to a bunch of war crap, which is super boring. But I'm hoping there'll be something in between. And Netflix. But yeah, you have to. There are shows that you want to watch because it's like your video games where you're making the folders of things. Like the vistas are like I love the look of The Expanse, the way the lighting director and the set design and it. Like I want to watch that show. I can't, even though I've watched it already. I couldn't. I would get distracted. I wouldn't paint anything. But like sitcoms, I love sitcoms. Or I'm trying to finish Voyager was one of the ones I had on Netflix. That was the one Star Trek I'd never really watched all the episodes of. I wish I'd done it the other order because I liked Deep Space Nine the best. I wish I'd left that one for last to watch the whole way through. But if I'm doing something that I'm not as familiar with, or where I have to think like picking colors or trying a new skill, it has to be just music or something because I'm using too many parts of my brain to follow a narrative thing. Or I like listening to like history YouTube videos or stuff sometimes too if I want to mix it up. I don't want to do something fictional, but if I need to focus and that's when people are trying new skills, I think if you're used to, you just sit down and you put on your favorite Netflix show or audiobook or whatever, you're just going to do blending the old way you did it and not try the new way that Aaron's going to tell you in his class next month because you're going on autopilot. So if you don't want to do stuff on autopilot, if you're pushing yourself to do more contrast or do something different, then take off the things that you normally do and put on just music or nothing even.
Derek, do you just paint in silence or do you incorporate any music or I know you're really big.
He makes his own soundtrack.
Yeah, he's
more often. I have some music playing. Sometimes just in silence, and I'm focusing intently on the figure, and just losing myself in the activity. But lately I've also been watching either live or watching the videos of Anne's show from the morning, the Reaper Pro Tips, or watching Crow's Nest and some other Twitch streaming, and especially because it's you people who I know, and so I know your voices, and so it's sort of like having you there in the room with me while I'm painting. And I'll look up occasionally to see what Anne is demonstrating or what you're demonstrating, but for the most part it's just an audio component because my visual is so focused on the miniature then.
Aaron for the block. Yeah.
I paint in silence because I'm dead inside.
Dead. Well, we figured that. That's why I saved you for last.
No, what's funny is I really, and it drives Liz crazy because I just need white noise. I need some sort of noise going on, and I really don't care what it is. She'll be like, "What do you want to listen to today?" I'm like, "I don't care, just anything." I'm good. But at the end of the day, we listen to a lot of Grimes, Roy Scott, The Knife, bands like that. They're all weird names of bands, but I just love them. And most of them are because and I also drive her crazy because I don't do Spotify, I do YouTube. So I just turn on a song that I like, and then whatever plays after that plays after it. And so a lot of the music that I've grown to really love and enjoy is not stuff I knew about before that. It just like pops up and I'm like, what the heck is this? Who is this singer? And so that's been kind of fun. But it's anything that's just kind of like, I kind of live in my own fantasy world when I paint anyways. You just kind of lose yourself in the painting. Right. And so sometimes I'm not even really listening to what's going on. It's one thing I really hate about video editing because you can't listen to music while you do that. Like you have to listen to your stupid self, So So like, when do I make this cut? I don't know. I can't hear it over Public Enemy playing in my ear. Like it just. I really like when I'm painting. Like sometimes I'll have it on my headphones cranked up all the way, but I won't be wearing my headphones so I can hear it. Like, I don't know why I don't just have it on my monitor, but it's just weird. I do weird stuff.
I find sometimes when I'm listening to an audiobook and I'm painting, if I come back to that miniature the next day and I look at it, I remember that part of the story that I was painting
Yep.
to when the audiobook was going on. I was like, and that's what comes back to me. Or I'll even pick up a miniature and I haven't listed, it's been done for 3 or 4 months, and I'll look at it and I'll remember the story from the audiobook or whatever. But that's generally my go-to. But I do like Derek. Sometimes it is just good to, and like Rhonda said as well, just to paint in silence, and so you can really focus on what you're doing. But I will switch over to that book as soon as my brain starts going in the other million other directions that my squirrel brain tends to go to. If I get too distracted and I'm not really focusing in, I find going into an audiobook shuts that off and lets my mind follow the story, and then I'm not as in my head as much about what I'm doing with the paintbrush. And sometimes that relaxation helps me personally to deliver a better result. What about you, Jason? When you're sculpting, are you listening to music or?
I listen to music a little bit every day, but I find music distracts me from sculpting because I tend to listen to it too hard. So I put on
your neck starts hurting and everything.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it is, but every once in a while, a good Hong Kong action cinema flick, or I recently got Discovery Plus network, and I'll put on, Forged in Fire is one of my favorite things to listen to. Battle Bots, I love to listen to Battle Bots. That kind of stuff that I can listen to, and it doesn't really impact what I'm doing, but it feels like there's something else going on in the house. So, I mean, otherwise it's a lot of pug snorts and, farts and all that. So,
same.
Awesome.
But then when you listen to stuff, they can sneak up on you, because my cats will sneak up on me, and then there's a claw in the butt.
Yeah.
It's a very startling thing when you're painting.
They have when you get too intent, they definitely know when to derail you from your project. They just say, okay, you're too serious about this. Here's this rag to play with. It's all full of spit. I hope you like it.
Right. All right, Jason, you're up.
Well,
I had the last question. I'm confident this time I had the last question.
Well, you did, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, because I asked the work in progress one. And...
Well, no, there was one question that's just for Jen in the chat. What is your favorite part of the hobby?
Oh, just for Jen. Nobody else. Not
just
you,
for Jen.
Aaron.
Just for me.
Hold it,
just
Aaron.
for Jen.
Jen, what's your favorite part of the hobby?
That's very strange, but okay. I don't know if I have a favorite part of the hobby. I mean, is that favorite from stages of prepping and painting and finishing a figure? Well, prep is not my favorite.
Yeah.
I enjoy that moment when you're getting towards the end and everything that you've been working on is starting to come together. Because, kind of you have prep phase, and then you have ugly phase, and then you have the phase where you're wondering if this was a good choice in the first place, and then you get towards the end, and you put on that final highlight or whatever, and then it all comes together the way that it's supposed to, hopefully. And I would say that's probably my favorite part.
I'd like to answer that question, Jason. No. I'd like to answer it.
Apparently you were too intense, and now there's a cat.
And then I got playing.
I'd like to answer it.
Proctor.
I'd like to answer that. I'd like to answer that.
No, let me play off that question, and then you can answer it.
Okay. But don't go too far away from it, because then it won't matter.
All right.
What
Playing
I say.
off that, what's your favorite thing to paint? Couple word answer. Except for
who?
Michael, who has more to say about
Jen.
the last facet of the last question. Favorite thing, Michael?
I don't have a favorite thing to paint. I like to switch it up.
All right.
Okay. Aaron.
Space Marines. Period. I still love it. It was the first thing ever.
Favorite subject?
Fantasy characters that have a lot of different materials on them. so I can show, I have the versatility and show how these different materials juxtapose on one another.
All right, Rhonda.
I'm like Jen. I like to mix it up, but there's a couple things I don't love. Like I don't love super gross monsters, and like mechs and mechanical things that are just all mechanical.
Michael.
My favorite thing to paint is anything Jason Weeby sculpts.
Oh, you knew the correct answer.
My favorite thing about the hobby is, and I didn't know this going in, and this is going to sound super duper cheesy, but it's you guys. It's all the people I've gotten to meet from this hobby. It's such a cool group that you get involved in and you become friends with. I mean, I've known all of you guys way too long, much longer than a majority. You think about your friends that you have in your life, some come and go and everything, and the relationships that we've built are 10, 15 plus years, for me at least, old, if not older. And it's fantastic in this whole, I mean, this would be the perfect time to wrap up the show, but we still got 10 minutes. But it has been, the pandemic thing has sucked and everything, but I really love you guys, and but it's that has been the biggest surprise of the hobby, and the continued surprise, and the connections you make and the relationships you build and the people that you admired before you got to know them and still respect and admire afterwards, but now you're close friends to. Yeah, I mean, and Aaron, all of that.
Yeah.
It all connects in together.
Well, you can't win them all, man.
Let's take our time at the end of the show and let's talk about, I assume everybody here enjoys what we're doing, in many facets. I think most of us enjoy some gaming, whatever. So, assuming you feel it has enhanced your life experience, how has it enhanced your life experience? We'll start with
that's a great
Derek.
question.
Well, I think the meditative focusing aspect of, for some span of time, reducing my world to something that fits into my hand and lets my mind sharpen on one thing, then gives me a kind of patience or stillness that I can bring to the rest of my life.
Great answer.
As a kind of philosophical thing, but on a more creative or practical level, then having these miniatures where I need to decide on colors and highlights and shadows and so on, that then opens my eyes to seeing that variety in the world around me as well, and helps me appreciate those differences by being able to put a name to it, or put a texture or a relationship to it. I can then be more aware of that around me, and you're taking your first step into a larger world, says Obi-Wan Kenobi to young Luke in Star Wars. So.
Okay, Rhonda, can you beat that?
Yeah.
No, probably not. That was really deep and philosophical, and I don't think that traditional art is having more of that effect on me. But for miniatures, I think it was. I actually consciously picked this as a hobby, which I don't know. A lot of people, my friends, were doing it, so I started doing it too. That kind of thing. But after I got married and I moved to the United States, I wanted a hobby, and I remember doing artistic, physical things in school. Like I wanted something that wasn't just all in my head, which my previous hobby had been. And I'm like, needlepoint and embroidery, that's all nice, but I don't want the crap you have at the end of it. I don't need a bunch of crocheted blankets in my life or whatever. I'm like, so miniatures, because if we start role playing again, and even if we all hate them,
or donated them, or
they're tiny. Yeah, I guess that's true. I should have not been as selfish. But so the miniature painting seemed like it would fit because it fit into gaming and other things. But then doing it, I mean, the community and the opportunity to teach, which I don't know if I would have fallen into through any other thing I might have done in my life. Um, I like that so much more than I expected, and it keeps me engaged in miniature painting more than I expected. So I don't know that that would have, I didn't have kids. I didn't train to be a teacher, or don't think any of the job skills I have would have led to that. But this has, and that was an unexpected and fulfilling part of my life. But then absolutely the friendships.
Oh,
like
sorry,
Michael said.
Ron, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
How about you, Jen?
I don't think I have anything different from what other people have already said. I am a software engineer in my day job. So mini painting is a hobby for me that allows me to participate in a completely different kind of activity and problem solving, which is nice. And yes, weirdly, there is definitely a social aspect to it, for an activity that most of the time you're pretty much just doing, on your own in your closet or whatever. But the community that has grown up around mini painting and related hobbies is, by and large, a really great community to be a part of.
Great. Aaron, other than enhancing your bathroom experience, what has the miniature thing done for you?
Absolutely nothing. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Michael? No, go ahead. Go ahead, Aaron.
I don't know. I think it's a good creative outlet for me. I like learning new things. The one thing I would have never expected, because everything I've done in my life, like there was screen printing, I got to a point I could do all the separations. I could make a 12 color print. I had automatic presses, all that stuff. And you just kind of like, okay, there's nothing else, like I've got it. With painting and miniature painting, it just seems like every time you think that the ceiling has been hit, man, somebody goes right through it, like a mile through it, and it's like, I think that keeps me excited about it. There's always something new to learn, and someone always comes up with something really cool that you would have never thought of, or maybe you're the person who came up with something cool, like it doesn't matter. It's fun seeing that and having that creative outlet, I think.
Michael?
I think, yeah. I mean, it's always great going last, because then I can just steal all the ideas that everybody.
You can really just say what you said to start the whole ball rolling if you want. Just recap that about the community and all that nonsense.
Well, that's what I was ending with. So you just kind of ruined that for me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let's forget we said it. All right.
I was going to connect everybody's stories and then bring it up.
Okay. Well, no, go ahead. I want to see how you do this.
Now you've kind of ruined it. You ruined the whole.
Forget it. Just wipe it from your mind.
To bring what Derek said about focusing in, and really the thing you're holding in your hand is your universe for that period of time, and that's what you're working on. To me, that's very cathartic at times. I can let go of whatever crap is going on and just work on that. I think that is what I can take out of it and give me a little bit of a break. Jen said a very similar thing as well, and Rhonda too, of just the community, all the friends and what have you. I'd have to add to Aaron's story that I'm glad he picked up miniature painting, because it got him off the streets, which wasn't a good place for him at the time. So
it is what it is.
That win. But yeah, it's been, I don't know. I want to come back to it as well, just because we have been so far apart, is when we all get together at these cons, everybody gives each other a hug. That's the first thing you always do with everybody. And we haven't had that. And that's what I'm looking forward to again. So these it's a shitty.
We may not have that even if we get together in the fall, but that's okay.
I'm triple masking up and I'm hugging whatever walks by me. No. But
you've all been warned.
It's all been warned. Anyways, but that's really what it comes back to is it's been the big surprise in this was I got into this because I used to do it a long time ago, And Michelle suggested when we moved up high in the mountains, I'm like, I need a hobby. And she suggested, why don't you go back and paint those goofy little metal things that you did before? I'm like, that sounds like fun. That'll be nice and distracting. And then
little did she know.
I had no idea that this world would exist after I went to the store and bought my first Reaper miniature, my first rack of miniature, and they didn't have poly S paints, so I bought Reaper pot paints. Those were my first purchase that I did to get back into the hobby, and for it all to end up here, like, just today even, is fantastic.
So that's great. So we have we have escape, we have focus, we have community, we have challenge, all of that in just this one endeavor of painting little miniatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think we're getting close to the ending time. Is that correct? We were supposed to end at 2:30 Central Time. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to go around the circuit yet again, and we always do this. And thank you for your time. Thank you for all of your insight, your sharing your feelings and your history and your path and your advice. Talk a little bit what you got going forward. What do you want to promote? What do you want to pub? Derek, I want to know more about your acting and your singing or whatever else you want to share.
I don't have anything painting related on a video or things to sell, but keep looking for my stuff on the Reaper forum or the Reaper Discord. If you're interested in what I paint and sculpt, there'll be more of it coming. And if I land some gigs, I'll try to spread the word so people in the Reaper community will know about it. A lot of those dramatic things are Zoom shows or otherwise online, so it's accessible to people around the world.
Awesome. Aaron, we only have a little bit of time left, but what would you like to share?
I've reached my 1,500 word limit, so
okay.
So I have a blending class coming up in April. www.miniaturemonthly.com. If you're interested in learning how to blend, that would probably be a good one. It's a month-long process. Super cool.
And he's a great teacher too. He doesn't mail it in. There's lots of resources. There's lots of references, lots of examples. It's well worth the time and the money. It's a great. Aaron puts on fantastic classes.
Liz and I both put a lot of effort.
Oh yeah, I am very negligent there. I mean, the real brains behind the operation is
Liz. Yeah.
Sorry, Liz. I need to give you a lot more credit than I just did. Jen.
I don't really have anything to promote, so I will gladly cede my time to Rhonda and Aaron and apparently Liz.
All right, yeah. Thanks, Liz. Liz, you're doing a great job. Rhonda.
Let's see. So birdwiththebrush.com is kind of like my central location, and there's painting tips and stuff like that there. I do have a couple of videos on YouTube, and the channel is Bird with the Brush, related to Reaper Virtual Expo. So if you want to see what's in the swag boxes, or you want to see swatches of the paint and listen to me just kind of yammer about random stuff related to paint, or it might actually be very random. I don't remember. It was all stream of consciousness. Go check that out. And I think that's about it.
Hey, Justin, do you have that image that Jason sent out earlier today that you can? Do we want to show that off, Jason?
Or do we want to show that off? Is this the emailed image?
Yeah.
Okay, let me grab it real quick.
So while he's grabbing it, for Jason and I, we do the Crow's Nest every Tuesday at 5:00 Central. I started off doing this show on my own with just Justin. Was never on my own. It was Justin and me doing this, but Jason joined me, and without Jason joining me, I wouldn't be still doing that show. He makes it so much more enjoyable, and that's why we want to do this panel together and everything too. But Jason,
it is outside, fun, despite appearances.
We're doing better, trying not to talk over each other, but then again.
Now, I do have a little bit of an announcement that was made on Facebook this morning. Other than my normal companies that I'm working for that you're familiar with, I've started a project with the Fantasy Network and Ben Dobbins and Wendy and Richard Peeney. And I'll be announcing soon. They've already announced soon two sets of ElfQuest miniatures that'll be released in conjunction with the crowdfunding for an ElfQuest audio movie.
Wow.
So I'm kind of excited about that. That's kind of a neat thing to get started on.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh. What is this madness?
Get on or get under the bus, baby. This is still a work in progress, right, Jason?
Is that a Ford?
Yep. Absolutely a work in progress.
Yeah. But we are working on we're working on this and a few other things that are going to be tied to the show, miniature related, maybe paint related as well. The bus has become a continual joke within the show. It's been a lot of fun. Anybody can get driven over by the bus, whether it's a person or a giant company, as Tom Mason demonstrated in last week's episode. God, he just went straight for the jugular on that one. But
so it's really something you should have on your desk to remind you about life in general.
Yeah. Get on or get under. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I know we've had a lot of people watching this entire time. It's been a lot of fun. And thanks for the questions. Thanks for the participation. Thanks to all you guys. Checks in the mail. And that's it. Anything else you'd like to say in parting, Jason?
Just thanks everybody for showing up. This is kind of a little bit of a departure for Michael and I on this show, to have this many people, this much talent all in one show. I wanted to thank the sculptors that we worked with yesterday. I'm kind of hoping we can do some more episodes like this as we go. I think that the people find it immensely valuable to understand not only how you approach painting, but getting tips, not necessarily even technical tips, because you all do that so well in your classes, but tips on how to fully experience painting and how to approach it mentally. I think that's extremely valuable. So thanks, everybody. And thanks, Justin.
Yeah. Big thanks to Justin for keeping this ship running, making sure that all the technical difficulties are worked out, providing great backgrounds that sometimes move and sometimes don't, and just always being there for us. I really appreciate it. There we go. All righty.
All right.
What do you think, Justin?
Thank you guys very much. It's been fantastic. Listen to you guys talking about painting for the last 2 hours. It's
Did you just wake up?
You sound less enthusiastic.
I did. I just woke up. It was a nice nap. Thank you, guys.
The producer isn't supposed to sleep through the show.
You know,
how many times do I have to tell you that?
The portion where Lovejoy went on for so long, I went into a catatonic state, and I woke up. You know.
Hey, that's what you guys invite me for.
And it was Derek's dulcet tones that just woke me up. So
yeah.
I like gruel ration for this week.
I liked watching Derek's face when Aaron kept droning on, and Derek just like, when is this guy gonna end?
No,
this is why Justin's not on camera ever.
This is great. No, this has been fantastic. It's always great to talk to you guys, dude. To kind of piggyback on what Michael said, it's one of the best things about this job at this point is meeting you guys and getting to interact with you and all the fun stuff that you guys do, even just outside of painting. So. Yeah. Between Rhonda's cats and Derek's singing and Lovejoy's fart jokes, I don't know what I'd do without any of it. But outside of that, guys, that's pretty much it. Other than the giant sponsored by Neidhart RVE special D&D game that's coming on here in about 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yes. Quick announcements. Like you had already said, Michael, if this party doesn't end, we keep doing it every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Central. And you guys are welcome to tune in. We have various artists. It's great. And since we scheduled it like 2 days ago, we have the House of X episode for March is planned for the 26th of March. Ooh. So check that out.
Who shows that?
I don't know. It's whatever. And of course we have various other shows. If you're ever curious about what we have going on, it's below the stream and a nice schedule, or it's on the offline screen. But thank you very much. This is almost day 2 down and in the books, and we thank each and one of you watching and people on the panel for being here. So, awesome, guys. Give everyone a wave, and we're going to be into our Be Right Back screen. Awesome. Beautiful waves. Beautiful waves.